Parietal lobe. The parietal lobe sits near the top and middle of your brain, and its main job is making sense of the physical world around you. Think of it as the brain's body awareness center. It processes sensations like touch, pressure, temperature, pain. So when you feel your phone vibrating in your pocket, when something is hot, or when you accidentally step on a Lego and immediately question all your life choices, that's the parietal lobe doing its job. It doesn't just detect sensation, it also helps you understand where your body is in space. This is called spatial awareness. For example, the parietal lobe helps you reach for a cup without missing, walk through a doorway without bumping into it, know where your hand is even when you're not looking at it. It basically builds a mental map of your body and surroundings.
Occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is your brain's visual processing center. It sits at the very back of your head, and its entire job is basically this: turning light into sight. When light enters your eyes, the information travels through the optic nerves and lands in the occipital lobe. Your eyes don't actually see things, your brain does. The occipital lobe takes those raw signals and figures out shapes, colors, movement, depth. In other words, it's the part of your brain that lets you recognize a face, read text, or tell the difference between a cat and a loaf of bread. And it works fast, processing visual information in fractions of a second, so the world feels smooth and continuous. If the occipital lobe is damaged, a person might lose parts of their vision, or in severe cases, become completely cortically blind, even though their eyes are perfectly healthy.
Temporal lobe. The temporal lobe sits on the sides of your brain, roughly around the area near your ears, and fittingly, one of its main jobs is processing sound. Every time you hear music, a voice, or someone calling your name from across the room, the temporal lobe is the part of your brain translating those sound waves into something meaningful. It also plays a huge role in language understanding. So when someone speaks to you, the temporal lobe helps you actually understand the words instead of just hearing random noises. Basically, without it, conversations would sound like blah, 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 sandwich, blah, taxes, banana. Not very helpful. The temporal lobe is also heavily involved in memory, thanks to a structure inside it called the hippocampus. This helps you store new memories, like where you parked your car, what you ate yesterday, or that embarrassing thing you said 5 years ago that your brain randomly reminds you about at 2 a.m. And interestingly, the temporal lobe also helps with recognizing faces and objects. So when you instantly recognize a friend across the street, that's your temporal lobe doing some quick detective work. In short, the temporal lobe helps you hear sounds, understand language, form memories, recognize people and objects.
Frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is basically the CEO of your brain. It sits right behind your forehead and handles the things that make you, well, human. Decision-making, planning, self-control, personality, problem-solving. All the high-level thinking happens here. So when you stop yourself from saying something stupid in a meeting, that's the frontal lobe working overtime. It's also in charge of voluntary movement through a region called the motor cortex, which sends signals telling your muscles when to move. But here's the interesting part. Your frontal lobe is also what lets you predict consequences. It's the voice that goes, maybe don't send that message. Maybe don't eat the entire cake. Maybe don't argue with your boss. When this area is damaged, people often become impulsive, reckless, or socially inappropriate